So in this video, we're going to be talking about why you actually need a plan B. I'm sure you've heard a lot of people speak about, you need a plan B for this reason, for that reason. You need to go and prep a bunch of stuff, like maybe you've seen preppers. But we're going to actually talk about it from a realistic standpoint of, why do you actually need a plan B? What are the tiers of sovereignty? Because the world is changing pretty quickly, and, stuff that worked 10 years ago no longer works, and things are moving faster than ever before. So firstly, what are the tiers of sovereignty? So at the very top is citizenship. This is where you actually become a citizen of a country and you get the passport. The reason why this is at the top is because you have full rights as someone born in the country. You can vote, you can live there unrestricted, you can work there, you can start a business, you can travel with the passport, etc. It has the most level of freedom there is, and it's the most secure. So, let's imagine you had citizenship to a country in South America, like Argentina, for example, and there was some geopolitical situation that meant you had to leave North America and Europe, maybe because of a war. If you had citizenship in Argentina, they could never refuse you entry to Argentina. It's basically the only visa where technically they can never refuse you entry because you're a citizen, you have a right to enter that country. Even with a permanent residence permit, they can still technically refuse you entry in some countries. So then going down a notch is permanent residence, and permanent residence these days isn't really that permanent in most cases. Usually you have to visit the country every 5 years is the usual case, and renew it. And if you don't visit in those 5 years, it can be taken away from you. Some countries even just if you're not living there anymore after like a certain amount of years, they'll just revoke it. So permanent residency isn't really that permanent, and I wouldn't recommend just sitting on a permanent residency. If you're eligible for citizenship, it always makes sense to get the citizenship in 99.999% of cases. And then below that you have temporary residence, which is usually a stepping stone to get to one of these high levels of sovereignty. Even if you're a temporary residence permit holder, they can basically take away that at any minute for any reason that they really want to. If you do something wrong, or they change their rules or something like that, it can be taken away from you. Some countries might be very open to residence permits now, and you might not have to actually spend X amount of days in the country per year to renew it, but they can just go ahead and change their rules, and then now your temporary residence permit is no longer valid because you didn't spend enough time there. And then the one below it is like a tourist visa, or if you have visa free and you're just a tourist in the country, you effectively have no rights in the country. You can usually, depending on the country, spend like 3 months, 6 months, or even some countries allow you up to 1 year. But it's like, if you really had to have a plan B, you really had to have a safe haven, there's no guarantee that you're going to be allowed in, especially if there's a geopolitical crisis globally. And, even if you own a property in the country, if you're not a proper resident, they can just turn you away, and, you might not have access to your property anymore. And, I'm not trying to make this video in a sort of doom and gloom way. I'm trying to give like a realistic look on what it actually is like to have a plan B. I'm sure you've seen videos like "Go here to escape World War III," or this is what you need to do for World War III, and it's a lot of fear mongering. And there is a possibility it could happen, but I think a lot of it is just fear based, and you need to think about it from a logical standpoint of like where actually makes the most sense for you. Where do you like spending time? Because one of the best places is just going to be South America, just because it's so isolated and such an easy region to get residence. That region makes the most sense for most people. If you have a lot of money and you're English speaking and you like somewhere like New Zealand, that also makes a lot of sense for some people. And also another thing when it comes to tiers of sovereignty, like stuff like bank accounts also matter quite a lot as well, and where you store your wealth, where you have your company incorporated. So like some countries that are relatively easy to open bank accounts. So Georgia, number one, is by far the easiest in the world. If you can go to Georgia, you can open a bank account in 1 hour. Like it literally takes 1 hour to open the bank account. You just have to have your passport. It costs like $10. If you can't go to Georgia, you can open Georgian bank accounts remotely with power of attorney. This costs quite a bit more, but Georgian bank accounts are very, very good. You can hold US dollars, euros, pounds, and the Georgian lari. Very good interest rates, very safe banks. And it's overall like a very great place to bank. Then also you have Panama, obviously very famous, very easy to open a bank account remotely in Panama. Also very easy to incorporate a company there as well. On the higher end of the spectrum, you have Singapore, some of the safest banks in the entire world. But like really with Singapore, that you're only really going to be looking at that option if you're moving around multiple millions. And then talking about citizenship, so where can you actually get citizenship easily? Which countries, are actually going to be the easiest? Because a lot of people talk, this country's easy, that country's easy, but what is actually going to be best for most people? So number one by far is Argentina. And the reason why Argentina is the best is because it only takes 2 years to get citizenship. It's the fastest in the world, one of the best passports in the world, situated right at the bottom of the world in the Southern Cone. It's a perfect geopolitical plan B. So much land available, so much, food available, so much energy available. It's just I think Argentina is the best by far. Then also Mexico is a great one. Very easy to get residence, very easy to get citizenship if you're willing to spend, 18 months actually on the ground out of the 5 years it takes to actually get the passport. And then if you want somewhere in Europe that is a little bit more geopolitically neutral, it's Portugal. Portugal is also a great place to live. It has very similar climate to California. It's very easy to get residence there. You can get citizenship after 5 years. And then for permanent residence, Mexico is also a great option as well for permanent residence. You can get instant permanent residency in Mexico. But if you had already visited Mexico between 2015 and 2022, it actually makes more sense to go through another program called the regularization program, because it's just easier. You don't have to show a bunch of documents. And, in Mexico, temporary residency and permanent residency aren't that different. And that temporary residency is very easy to change into permanent residency when you're eligible. Another one is Armenia. And Armenia is, probably not the best place to live in because of where it's situated if you're worried about geopolitical concerns. But Armenia has a very easy program to get permanent residency. You can even do it fully remotely. It involves incorporating a company and, investing around $6,000 or donating $6,000. And you can get permanent residency in Armenia without ever visiting the country. And you can also technically get citizenship in 3 years after that in Armenia. But whether they will naturalize you is another thing. But permanent residence is definitely possible remotely. Another one is Ecuador. Also very, very easy. You just have to put $45,000 in a bank account or purchase a property for $45,000 and you get permanent residency. It's one of the lowest in the world, extremely easy to get. But these countries are the places that are actually open to foreigners. These are the countries that make it easy for you to come, have these programs. Some of them are free. Some of them require some investment, some capital, like Armenia and Ecuador. But, places like Argentina, like Mexico, like Portugal, it's very easy to get residence there completely for free, not having to, invest any money in the country. They have very good rights for people owning property there as foreigners and owning assets, and they make a lot of sense. If you want to move to any of these countries, get a residence permit, get citizenship, open a bank account remotely, you can book a call down below and learn more about these programs.